let's go ahead and we have our move tool, which is the top tool up here. That's what we select when we want to be able to move particular objects around. And I'm not going to talk about shortcuts too much now because you're still learning the basics of the software, but it's really nice to learn those keyboard shortcuts. For, in this case, it's V. So if we ever want to access the move tool, we just type V in on our keyboard and we'll be able to switch to that without having to take our mouse and go all the way up to the top to select it. Learning a keyboard shortcut every once in a while is really nice to add. You speed up your workflow. So I'm just going to select this, and you'll notice by default in Photoshop that Show Transform Controls is not selected. And I'm going up and I'm just making sure that Show Transform Controls is selected. So now you'll see the transform controls for both of these objects, which I can scale together because I have them both selected. Press Enter, or I can just scale one at a time. So I can scale one at a time, and I have these nice transforming controls shown. So just make sure you have Show Transform Controls on. It's really nice to have so you can be able to have access to those transforming controls to make it bigger, smaller, and if you move out to the outside, you see that little arrow, you can even rotate the object, which comes in handy when it's not a circle. So let's delete this layer. I'm going to take this layer and drag it all the way to the trash can, and it's just going to disappear, and we're left with this one. So let's go ahead and make this a little bit bigger, have it be the centerpiece of this particular Instagram post. So let's add some type or text to our post. What we're going to do is we're going to grab the text tool, which is right here, the type tool. We're going to go ahead and select it and click anywhere here. And we're going to go ahead and type some type. So I just typed in some very generic text. I'm going to make it a lot bigger. Let's scale it up. So live life to the max. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about this character panel a little bit. Let's go ahead and every time you use a text object or you use the type tool, it's going to make it a new layer. So now I have this as a totally new layer that can be moved around just like the object, the green object behind it. So now I have two layers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag our layers panel back where it belongs. I just wanted to bring that out to show you more detail. And let's go ahead and go to our character panel. So our character panel is going to be how we're going to be able to edit type. So we're going to go ahead and double click on our type. It's going to highlight. And we have two areas we can edit our text up here or edit our text over here. Just whatever you feel more comfortable with. I'm going to stick with the character panel because I can drag it out and have it in close proximity to my type. So let's pick a nice typeface. We're going to go ahead and pick ones from our particular typefaces here. Let's do a nice, simple, clean typeface. And so the newer versions of Photoshop have a nice way to help you organize typefaces and fonts, but if you don't see that, then you might have an older version of Photoshop. You'll just have to manually find your favorites, but you can star your favorites to say, I really like to use this one a lot. I'm going to star it, and then I'm going to be able to click on the star, and I'm going to be able to create my top 20 font list. So in the graphic design theory lessons, I talk about finding 20 of your most used typefaces or ones you think you could really use often. This is a great way to be able to kind of manage all those font selections, is kind of creating a favorites list. So I'm just going to toggle that off and it's going to list all typefaces. Let's find a very simple sans serif typeface. So we're going to go up here, it says filter, all classes. We are going to do a sans serif typeface. Let's do a sans serif typeface. It's going to find only the sans serif typefaces. This is a really awesome newer feature in Photoshop. So let's see if we can't use a typeface called Open Sans. So I'm just typing it in. I'm able to bring it up. Open Sans is free on Google Fonts if you want to go ahead and download that font or find one that you like to use. You don't have to use what I use. Let's do a nice bold one. So we're going to do extra bold. And there's our typeface. We can change a couple of aspects of it. So let's first change the color. Let's go ahead and change it to white. So now it's white. And what we want to do is we want to change it to all caps. So I have kind of an all caps icon you can toggle here. There's also italics, there's also bolding, there's a couple of different options here. There's even superscript and subscript if you wanted to do any kind of, just like Microsoft Word or any other program that works with type. So I'm just doing an all caps so I can get a nice even kind of look to that. And let's make this on a couple different lines so we can make the type a little bit more high impact and bigger. So I'm just going to hold down, press enter, and it's just like any other text editing program. You're going to be able to put it on two lines and let's go ahead and center align this. So you have your alignment options right up here. We're going to go ahead and center align that. It's also going to be available in your paragraph panel right here. Let's drag our paragraph panel out. That's how you're going to be able to find a lot of alignment options. I'm going to do a nice center alignment and go ahead and bring it over top and make it a bit bigger. And let's make it 3 lines so we can have it even more high impact. I'm just going to double click and be able to make it 3 lines. So in graphic design, I want to make this feel more connected as one unified headline, because right now there's huge gaps between the type and I want to tighten the spacing. Sometimes you may not. Sometimes you can have your own unique look with wide spacing, but I want to tighten this up and make it one really tight, bold typography piece. So how we're going to do that? So we're in our character panel and we have our type layer selected. We are going to close the gap between the spacing between the lines, and that's going to be called leading, and that's going to be this little icon right here with the 2 A's stacked on top of each other. Auto is really nice to have, but sometimes the gaps could be a little wide, so let's see if we can't manually find some better spacing here. So let's try 72, and with all of these options you can manually type in stuff that's not. So right now 72 looks like it's the max, but it's not. You could push that to any number you want. So let's go ahead and do 110 pixels. And let's continue to tighten that, maybe 105. There we go. That'll work for right now. And we're just going to place it right here in the circle. So this is really basic stuff, but this is mostly for people who have never really been in Photoshop before. So it's really great to go slow and to do the basic stuff first. So let's go ahead and put our windows or our panels back in here for right now, and let's see what we could do with this. Let's bring in a photo. So let me go ahead and go to pexels.com and see if I can't download a really cool photo that we can use. That looks really nice. Let's go ahead and download this one. This is by Brady Knoll. So you can download whatever you want for this exercise. It doesn't have to be this one. I'm going to teach you kind of how to bring in photos. So you can just simply drag a photo in to Photoshop, and it's going to load it in. So we can kind of crop this or make it a little bit bigger by using the transform controls and dragging it out. So let's go to our layers panel because we want this on the bottom. So we're going to drag this layer all the way to the bottom. And there we go. So now we're like, oh, well, that looks kind of weird. Let's go ahead and see if we can't let some pixels in behind this green circle and make it a little bit transparent. So one thing you can do in your layers panel, you have your opacity. It's always connected to your layers panel. We could reduce the opacity so we can kind of see the woman in the background. Notice that? That kind of adds a nice vibe to it. Of course, the color is going to probably have to change now, which is no big deal. We can easily change the color. So let's change the color now that we reduced the opacity to 60%. We're going to double click. This is going to be layer styles. So we're going to be double clicking in this kind of blank area right here in our green circle layer. And it's going to call up what's called layer styles. This is how you add drop shadows, bevels, effects to your particular layers. So we're just going to do a simple color overlay. It's going to just totally change the color of that entire layer to whatever color you select. So we can maybe take our eyedropper tool and sample one of these nice light colors. We can even sample her dress. And we can also add a drop shadow as well. So this is how you add drop shadows, and we'll go over that a lot. We'll be using that a lot in this class. You can change the distance, you can make it more blurred, and you can change the opacity of your drop shadow. We'll go over layer panels a lot in future lessons. We're just kind of going over the very basics right now. So we can select both of these layers, and we can even just select one layer because we have auto select on. Whatever we click on, it will automatically select it. So now that we have auto select on, I can select this circle. I can hold down the shift button. I can select 2 objects at the same time. I don't have to go over here to my layers panel and highlight both like that. I can just do it right here and select it. So I can kind of move this over a little bit. And let's go ahead and crop this photo a little better. So I have our photo selected, and you'll notice when you drag a photo into Photoshop, it'll become a smart object. So what a smart object is, and you can always tell it's a smart object. I'll go ahead and show you. You can tell it's a smart object because it's got this little icon on the bottom right. So that means it's a smart object, and what that means is if I bring a photo in and it's a smart object, I can make it really big and really small, and it retains the original photo. It doesn't get changed at all. If it wasn't a smart object, then if I made the photo bigger, it would pixelate. And if I made the photo smaller, it would pixelate even worse. So smart objects are pretty nice when it comes to photos, and it does it automatically when you drag and import a photo in. So I'm just going to drag this down and just do some better cropping here. Let's really kind of bring in the woman here a little bit more. And now that we have this photo set, let's change her typography because I really want something more elegant now that she's in this nice elegant dress. So I'm going to change the typeface. So I'm just going to double click my text layer right here. I'm going to be able to go up here, or you can always go to that character panel if I want to change it, or you can change it up here. You know, it's really what you feel comfortable with. You got a lot of options of changing type. So I'm going to change it over here so the drop down box doesn't cover my little preview. And in older versions of Photoshop, you don't get the automatic preview of the type, which is kind of sad. I like being able to see the preview so I don't have to select it each time. So just a benefit to having a newer, updated version of Photoshop. But it's not a total game changer. It's just very nice to have. Let's do Railway. That's another font that's free to use from Google Fonts, so I'm just going to use that since I know you have access to it. Let's do a nice, thin, elegant typeface here. So I'm doing Railway Thin. Let's go ahead and select it off so it looks really nice. And let's highlight a word here. So what if we just highlighted Max and we made just Max going down to weight here, or I can go down to weight here and just changing it to black. Or I can double click this and see if I can't find another script typeface that might look really nice.